This is the story of a nuclear engineer who survived and later described what happened on that fateful night.
Memories of Boris Stolyarchuk.
Senior engineer operator of Power Unit Number 4 at the Chernobyl NPP. On April 25 to 26, 1986, he was on the night shift and worked at one of the control panels on the control board. He was responsible for water circulation in the reactor of Power Unit Number 4. The explosion of the nuclear reactor occurred literally through the wall from him.
I came on shift on April 25th at 11 p.m. It was a routine night shift. We were supposed to run an experiment to test the turbine generator rotor coast-down mode. When the turbine is shut down, and the amount of energy the generator can still provide to supply the cooling pumps in case of an emergency shutdown is verified. This was not the first experiment, and previous ones had ended in failure. During the day, the protections were disabled, and the reactor power was reduced to the level necessary to conduct the experiment. Further reduction of power was prohibited by the Kiev-Energo dispatcher. On April 25th at 11:10 p.m., the restriction was lifted, which made it possible to continue preparations. We knew it was a test, but no one understood how dangerous it would be. Everything was going wrong. At 1 hour 23 minutes and for seconds, the experiment began. The reactor was already at very low power, about 200 megawatts, instead of the planned 700 to 1,000 megawatts. The operators tried to increase the power, but almost all of the control rods had been withdrawn. We all watched this happen, but nobody stopped the experiment. Why? Because at that time, the operating documentation did not prohibit the operator from increasing the power. Nothing forbade increasing the power in that situation. At 1 hour 23 minutes and 40 seconds, the command AZ-5, emergency protection, was given. All control rods were lowered completely. I stood at the control panel and watched as the rods began to lower, and suddenly, a sharp jump in power. There was a bang. The gauges were off the scale. When I made the necessary switches, there was a second bang. I heard the crack of concrete and load-bearing structures. It all happened in 2 to 3 seconds. I continued to supply water to the separator. Then I ran out into the machine room and saw stars and the sky. The roof was gone. There was a huge hole. Dyatlov gave the order for everyone to leave the control room except for me and the shift supervisor. According to the instructions, we performed our duties until 4 a.m., until the new shift arrived. I made it home. While riding the bus, I saw the 4th block burning from the side. Once again, I couldn't believe my eyes. In Pripyat, I saw people walking around. No one had any idea what was going on. In the afternoon, I felt sick. My body was burning. I felt extremely uncomfortable. Nevertheless, I was getting ready for the next shift when people from the KGB knocked on my door. During the interrogation, I felt sick and was sent to the medical unit. I stayed there until we were transported by plane to Moscow. I spent almost 2 months in Moscow Clinic number 6. The diagnosis was radiation sickness. It was a miracle that I survived. The dose was about 100 roentgens. 6 months later, I returned to Pripyat to collect my stuff and never went back. When I moved to Slavatich, I felt like I was living in a foreign city. There were fewer young people, and people were preoccupied with cleaning up the accident. The mood was different.
Later, Boris Vasilyevich held the position of Director of the Department for Nuclear Facility Safety and Deputy Chief State Inspector for Nuclear and Radiation Safety. This story isn't from textbooks or Hollywood TV shows. It's the testimony of a man who was at the control panel when the disaster occurred and saw everything collapse in a few seconds.
Subscribe for more videos on Zone 86 channel. Leave comments about whether this disaster could have been avoided.